Why is everyone talking about Formula One?
Welcome to Formula One.
Formula One World Champion.
Formula One is more popular than ever, and it's not just because people suddenly developed a taste for motorsport. Last year, F1 brought in $3.9 billion in revenue, a 14% jump from 2024. Attendance is up, races are selling out, and the stands are starting to look different than they used to. Younger, louder, more online, more American, more feminine, and a lot of that has to do with Drive to Survive on Netflix. But it doesn't end there. The documentary series gave viewers unprecedented access to drivers, had intense production values, and was launched in 2019, just in time for lockdown. It opened up the sport to new demographics, including Americans. Going behind the scenes of the Formula One World Championships, Drive to Survive gave you characters to care about, villains to root against, and just enough technical detail to feel like you were in on something. So you didn't have to grow up watching F1 to understand tire strategy or get hooked. You just had to care about people. And once people cared, they started posting. Fan cams of drivers set to pop songs, breakdowns of penalties and pit stops, edits of mid-race announcements. There are whole entire communities of women explaining DRS zones and race strategy to each other, building fluency in a sport that never really tried to include them before. Cleo Abram made an explainer, F1 Explained for Rookies, which has almost 5 million views. Charlotte Delaroy, an F1 content creator, told me that she also gets the most views on videos that are explainers.
That video is the explaining F1 to people who don't watch F1. That's the analytics for this one. Yeah. So it has over 8,000, almost 8,700 hours of playtime.
So there was a moment there in time when the world was locked away and Netflix was talking about Formula One and showing the world Formula One. And it's all kind of combined over the last 5 or 6 years into this moment where we've gone from being a sport that probably a smaller group of people globally, although still impressive in terms of numbers, watch, to a global phenomenon. What we've seen is that kind of build over time, and into 2025 you've seen record attendance, huge numbers watching, new deals being done with brands that, again, 5 or 10 years ago you would never have dreamt of. LVMH, Lego, Disney. It's kind of a combination of so many different things that have kind of come to a narrow channel that meant 2025 was a huge success. But also, people forget this, and I'm a big advocate of this, and probably make many of my colleagues roll their eyes, but what happened on track in 2025 was also great. And that's the core of what we are, the racing. You know, going down to the final race.
The sport didn't just gain viewers when it became popular among people who post content online. It gained a kind of participant, an automatic marketer. Some people were brought into the sport from the documentary, and some of those same fans stayed because of creators like Cleo, Charlotte, and Grace Hobson, another F1 content creator.
There is a lot more influencers that go to the race and like celebrities, but in hindsight, they're the ones that's increasing viewership as well, because they're bringing their audience in, watching their videos of like, come with me to the F1. Like, again, you wouldn't see it years ago.
Now, while the internet makes F1 feel open, the actual experience of it, like going to a race and being in those spaces, is still closed off for most people. F1 used to read as inaccessible in every sense, geographically, financially, culturally, and it still is in a lot of ways. Lewis Hamilton is the first and only Black driver in Formula One history, and there have been 0 women on the F1 grid. Tickets are expensive, travel is expensive, access is expensive, attending a race weekend costs thousands of dollars. A lot of fandom exists at a distance. This isn't just for F1 though, that's all fandom. Fandom is always exclusive in some ways. Just think about K-pop stan or the price of a ticket to a Taylor Swift concert. For F1, that means you're watching someone else attend a race, watching someone else meet a driver, watching someone else live the version of fandom that's just out of reach.
You guys, look at this. We're literally in the garage. We've just had a tour around. These are the cars that Lewis and George are going to be driving in literally like 3 hours time.
Now, while that feels unequal, it's often kind of fun to watch the races through someone else's eyes, and F1 gets that model. Social media hasn't just changed the audience's experience of F1 either, but the drivers too. The athletes themselves were once not allowed to have a social media presence at all.
We shouldn't forget what we've done on social media. 8 or 9 years ago, drivers and teams were not allowed to post content from within the Formula One weekend. You know, it was very restricted. It was all controlled by Formula One. And again, the thing that Liberty and Chase and Stefano have opened up is people want to hear from the drivers. They want to see behind the scenes. They want to hear from the teams. So opening up that access behind the scenes of the sport has been a crucial part of it. So there isn't one key element that has kind of unlocked that.
Letting drivers post more, show more personality, be a little less controlled sounds small, and it changes the texture of the sport. It has had huge ripple effects. It softens a sport that has historically been about wealth, exclusivity, and national prestige. It makes it legible to a larger, more diverse audience.
A few years ago, we would have said this is great that we're seeing growth in terms of our social following. Greater diversity of our fan base as well has been crucial. It's not just the numbers, but it's who as well. And, I think we'd always have hoped that they would have turned into a genuine fan. You've got different types, right? You've got core fans, casual fans, new fans, people that kind of float in and out. And we always want to convert them in.
It also turns drivers into influencers whether they want that or not. Just consider this viral clip of Charles Leclerc being harassed by fans in a hotel last month.
Oh my god.
Much like the influencerification of artists, musicians, scientists, and writers who have to become content creators to further their career, this spurs a different kind of economy around the sport. Not just ticket sales and sponsorships, but attention and engagement, and entire cottage industries of fan accounts and content creators who are, in some cases, doing as much audience building work as the league and drivers themselves.
Influencers and social content creators are helping to amplify our sport. And our view is if they love our sport and they're bringing it to fans and they're doing it in new ways, we're all for that. And we want to see that grow because it only benefits Formula One.
F1 is expanding into new markets, courting younger fans, and presenting itself as more inclusive. Lewis Hamilton is working to make the grid more diverse.
I'm starting to see change, but you don't see that on TV.
Yeah.
So when I talk to the bosses of the sport, I'm like, hey, there's all white men facing, and me facing the camera at the start of the race. Where are the women? Where are the people of color? We've got to be showing so the young kids are watching and they're like, I can be an engineer, I can be a mechanic or whatever it may be. And even for young girls, I can be a racing driver.
F1 itself is making more diverse partnerships like with Sephora and Lego, and some teams have pivoted to hosting free fan zones on weekends to cut costs for fans. But it's still race car driving. It operates within a structure that prioritizes wealth and access. Fandom can feel democratized while the sport itself remains stratified. Today, being an F1 fan often isn't just about watching the races, it's about participating in a constant stream of discourse, edits, analysis, and inside jokes. It's about knowing the lore. So 2025 was the most attended F1 season ever. You could blame the documentary, you could blame an Oscar-nominated film, or you could blame influencers. The sport can still feel exclusive. The fandom doesn't really anymore. And somewhere in between all of that, F1 has become a global obsession.